Well, Abhijit, for our audience, do you mind sharing a little bit who you are and what you do, what you're
Well, I lead Project DEFY. It's a non-profit that's based out of Bangalore, but works in several regions, countries. Um, and what we do is something really simple. We try to reimagine the education system by creating learning spaces or schools that have no teachers, no exams, no curriculums, where the students who are between the ages of 10 and 72 as of now get together um, and think and create their own educational journeys. And all of these learning spaces or nooks that we, as we call them, are in some of the most marginalized communities in the world, who are now taking the challenge of reclaiming their own education, and exercising complete control over it. So that's what we do.
Wow. So basically, learners who drive their own learning.
Learners who drive their own learning, but not just their own learning, but they drive their own learning space and learning system.
What does it feel like to be at the helm of your organization? Like, and
Um,
how do you also differentiate between the two?
between the two,
Like,
between
there's the organization, and then
person,
there's the work, which is slash, say in this case, I know we've spoken about the term movement, like
yeah,
how DeFi is an org and DeFi as a movement.
yeah.
Um, how do you perceive, what does it feel like to be at the helm of your organization and of your work?
Hmm. I think probably I am a half decent CEO, and there are scores of people who would do a better job of that. I've never prided myself for that role. Um, I need the car to go from one place to another, and unfortunately, you've only got me on the driver's seat. So that's how I've seen running an organization in some ways. Sometimes people may see it as a pessimistic thing, but actually it has,
Glorified driver.
yeah, actually it has helped us um, to not have too much of this belief system of authority that I think I would like everybody to believe that they have an okay leader running an organization. That's probably not even my best skill set.
Mm.
I would like the better part of my skill set to be in being a child. And I think some things that children possess are just incredible. They have a very innate ability to connect with people and to bring them together. You leave a couple of kids on the playground, and the moment you look away, they are playing together, or they're fighting with each other, or they're doing something. But you leave a couple of adults in the playground, and they're finding corners to be alone in. So this,
On their phone,
or they're
talking to their friends on social media.
and being suspicious of each other. So I think it takes being a child to build a movement.
Abhijit, very quickly for our audience, can you tell us what are you trying to solve through your work, which is, say, on the big picture side, how it translates to on the ground? Uh, Maybe take us a little bit through that.
What we're trying to do is shift the narrative of education, where the child is seen as a future economic asset, to seeing the child as a child. It's as simple as that. Seeing the child as a human, a complete human, not a human in the making, not a human that is ripe after 25 years and ready to slaughter, but a human that lives, breathes, thinks, believes, cares, even when he or she is 3 years old. So now that might seem very philosophical, but uh, actually it is what determines the practical dismantling of an education system. So as of now, I mean, we started with first showing what could a different learning environment look like, because there is enough philosophy in a lot of books um, written by people much wiser, much older than me. I did not need to write another book, but there was not any great example of a radically different learning environment that actually worked for somebody who was not a multimillionaire, somebody who was not even middle class, somebody who belonged to that 70%, for whom the large option has been either go to government schools where even the teachers might not show up, um, or perpetually suffer the consequences of your poverty. So um, so that was where we started, and today there are several nooks in several countries, and an additional part of this thing, this belief system is now that it will not matter even if we created 10,000 nooks. What has always changed a narrative or a system has never been an organization. It has always been a movement. So how do we bring people together, organizations, individuals, governments, children, and create a movement where they start building this new reality, this new future? And mind you, changing the education system is not as simple as changing the school. Uh, you can put as many plasma TVs and AI operated, AI enabled software. It will not change anything. Changing the education system is changing humanity, changing the human narrative, and that cannot be done by an organization. That can be done by a movement that goes far, far beyond the boundaries of the organization. And sometimes we must sacrifice the organization for the sake of that movement.
A quick question. Who should get in touch with you? And this can be from a curiosity to explore the work, or it can be a curiosity to expand their own existing work. Like, who do you think would value from getting in touch with you?
I've always maintained that if you liked what I just said, you should always get in touch with us. And if you completely hated what I just said, then how can you not get in touch with us? Don't you have enough curiosity to find out and to convince us that we are wrong? So there's an open invitation, and I'm being very honest here, that we have not just tried to meet organizations or funding agencies. We have met that individual parent who was thinking about their child's education. We have met that old person who suddenly realized that they have been completely scammed by an evil system and they have nobody to talk to about it. We have met with that government official who has spent years and years trying to fix the education system and finally is on the verge of complete disillusionment. We have met nonprofits that have for years tried to fulfill schools and take children who could not access them and then could not see any real change even after doing that. Um, and we don't know. Sometimes these conversations lead to partnerships, but that's the organization talking. What it really leads to is changing the narrative for at least one person. And I think I really believe in that, and I feel that if any moment or any time of my life can be spent on that, it's time well spent. So so people who are of course interested in creating their own learning spaces or creating nooks in their own communities, they should reach out with some
Thanks,
urgency.
Abhijit. You answered my other question also, which is who would you like to get in touch with? Which is again the reverse of that. But partnerships with people, and how DeFi has grown to where it has grown to today and continues to expand. Um, so from this lens, could you maybe share a little bit about what significance partnerships has played for your journey?
We made a very early decision long back in our timeline that we will never create even a single nook without partnering with someone. In fact, we will never find a place on the map and do something just because we want to do something there, but instead sort of work by invitation. And so this by invitation bit has stayed with us, that every nook becomes alive because there was an invitation by someone, an organization, a company, a group of people, an individual. Um, to co-create a nook in where they are. So partnerships mean everything to us, but this but is an important one. We are tired of partnerships that are insecure. We are tired of um, we've had many mistakes in our early days where um, we would get into a partnership, and sometimes even us, we would be in this sort of preservation mode, trying to protect ourselves. This is not a good way, I think, to get into a partnership. The virtue of a partnership must be trust, must be going beyond these boundaries of preserving and protecting your organization, the contract that you have, and these, if we can't move past that, it is usually very difficult to even worry about the community, because I can worry about my organization and you can worry about yours, but who's going to worry about, about the community? Whose priority is that? So for us, it is very simple that the reason to partner with us should not be DeFi. The reason to partner with us should be a child, a community, um, and that should be the main purpose of that partnership.
I'd like to maybe at this point ask, how have you perceived Helm of Eight? We're doing this at a juncture where we're wanting to talk to people that how we exist as an organization, but we want to do it through the words of our people who know us. So, what was the first impression that you had of Helm's mission, vision, the work that we do as an organization, and yeah, have you seen us evolve?
I'll use the word that you used. You said friendship. There's something very interesting about friendship. And usually it is considered an unprofessional quality in a business environment. But its history is also equally interesting. I think when you see friendship in a paranoid, hyper capitalist society where everybody is just trying to maximize their own benefits, then friendship reeks of corruption. But that was not the kind of society the Indian subcontinent experienced, uh, for a long time until we were invaded um, and colonized. The kind of economic environments that we are used to in this continent, actually before the British, is is not paranoid, is not insecure, and it is based on friendship. And there it does not reek of corruption. There it smells of trust. It's And mind you that all of the economic pundits of today who are telling us about how to build economies, and they use the Western world as an example of how successfully they built economies, completely forget that they never did actually build one. They they stole from economies and they built wealthy conglomerates, which they call countries today. Uh, but the ones who actually made successful economies, were the people living in the Indian subcontinent, or the people living in the Chinese region 500 years ago. It's no secret. I mean, a popular statistic is India contributed to 23% of the world's GDP. And it did that without hypercapitalism, without excessive competition, without putting economy at the top, and instead putting the self-fulfillment at the top, and community fulfillment just below it. And then economy is the easiest one, the simplest one. And that allowed them to be not paranoid, that allowed them to be secure, that allowed them to trust each other, and that built great economies. And this is what it is. This is the paradox, that for two people, two organizations to work together, they will have to move past the very idea of organizations, which also was born. The present form of all organizations come from the same designs that had colonized us. So we have to move past that. And our only tool to move past it, the only Lakshman Rekha, so to speak, that we can draw, crossing all of these boundaries, is friendship. Because we did not learn friendship from the West. We did not. We have that tool. We have always had it, and um, and the Western world completely ignored it, did not see it, and ultimately it was the greatest threat that destroyed their control over places like India. So I see friendship as a very, very important decolonial tool that actually allows people to come together. And that has been, I think, my experience with you and Helm of Fate. Sometimes I don't even think of the name of the organization. Just like I think you must not be too bothered about what we are called. The names are not important. They are for birthday cakes. But but because friendship transcends these self-preservation mechanisms, I think our journey together has been so beautiful. Even though it's just only been 2 years since we reconnected, um, but that I could completely trust with everything that is going wrong and going right and scaring me, um, and that never was weaponized against me, and that was never used so that you could tell me of one more problem to solve that you would be better at solving at than we would be. That's usually the sales pitch. Make the client understand what they are doing badly and then show them. Instead, you did something very different. You were able to help me have some confidence that these things will work out, and sometimes that's all that was necessary. So yeah, I hate to say partnership. I'm very glad for this friendship. It is to me a far bigger superset to a partnership. Um, and I don't care if people feel that is
Any
unprofessional.
thoughts on where we may land in our collective journey beyond over the next, say, 10, 20?
Yeah, I think sometimes, and so my wife usually jokes about that. If I meet somebody for 30 seconds and then I come home and I tell my wife about that person and I say, oh, yeah, my friend, this is my friend, you know, and she'll be like, Abhijit, that's barely an acquaintance. It's not a friend. And I kid you not, I have made a full visual story about how we will be spending the next 50 years together, and that person has only spent 30 seconds. So of course I don't scare them with these things, and again it comes from this sort of very childlike imagination of connecting with people, that if you're connecting, why would it not be for the lifetime? Why would it be for a short period or a short purpose? Why would even there need to be a purpose? It's the whole point is to connect, and that's enough. That in itself is quite nice. Plus, I think we both run organizations, and one thing I've always said is anybody who will stay very close to ours will either see a great movement unfold and a complete rehaul of the future, or the most glorious failure that they have ever seen. One of the two. Either way, it's worthy of popcorn. So, I see it this way.
Happy to have a good seat in the house. For Good. Thank you, Abhijit, for sharing so honestly and so freely uh, our beautiful relationship. Uh, yeah, thanks.